Hi, this is Pastor Steve at Happy Thoughts. This is episode 30, which is amazing to me that we've made it that far. I am in Visalia, California, and today our weather is beautiful. The smoke from the recent wildfires has cleared at least for the day, and so we have enjoyed temperatures in the low 70s and clear skies for the first time in a long time. I hope wherever you might be viewing this video from, that you are also having a beautiful day, both outside and inside. Today, I want to begin a multi-part series on the path to finding long-term peace and restoring joy. I'll start by today talking just a little bit about my own journey in the Christian faith, and then in the succeeding episodes, as we continue to talk about the topic, we'll talk about specific steps that I have found useful in really bringing me to a place of peace and longer lasting joy. So I have been a Christian almost all of my life. And the reason that I became a Christian is really simple and may resonate with many of you. I came out of a chaotic and abusive childhood. Things were really a mess for my parents, and my father ended up dying when I was 6, and leaving my mother in charge of a house full of kids in a really difficult circumstance. And she didn't handle it well. I think that she likely would be diagnosed today as being mentally ill. The long and short of it is that it was a really abusive environment in which the message was incessant that we, her kids, had ruined her life, right? That having us was the worst mistake she'd ever made, and that we were to blame for all the things that were wrong in her life. At 6, 7, 8 years old, when that message was really being hammered home after my father's death, there weren't a lot of options at my disposal. I was smart enough to know I couldn't run away, right? That's kind of a sweet, innocent type of thing in younger kids. And I didn't really have a sweet or innocent childhood. And I knew I couldn't make it on my own. I knew I was trapped in that atmosphere. I was too young then to experiment with drugs or with alcohol or with sex. So there was no way that I had to numb the pain, although I did really kind of withdraw and become introverted. The one thing in my life that I was allowed to do was to go to church. Mom was never mad that I wanted to go to church with the next door neighbors, or when I got a little older, just walking by myself. And at church, I really locked in and resonated with what was being said, because the message of the church week after week after week really applied to my life. So at home, I heard, right, you ruined my life. I wish that I had never had you. You're horrible and you're holding me back. At church, I heard, God knows, right, that we're all terrible and that we've caused problems for other people. And he has made a way for us to be forgiven and for us not to have to be punished for all time. In that situation, the Christian message lined up perfectly with my reality, with my own understanding of myself and of other people. And so it didn't take me very long to answer an altar call, right? The preacher said, if you'd like to get your life right, if you'd like to have forgiveness, you come down the center aisle and you confess your sins, and you take the baptism class, and we'll get you set right with Jesus. That was wildly appealing to me in what innocence I had at that age. So I have been a Christian since that time, just because, again, the central message of Christianity, that God will save you from what your sins will have brought to your life, that he can cleanse you and make you whole, that was very, very appealing. So the person who I trusted most in the world as a child, which was my mom, told me I was bad and worthless. And the person who I noted other adults and children trusted, maybe second most in the world, which was the preacher, said, yep, you are in fact bad, and God knows it, but God is not going to hold it against you. He has a way for you. And that confluence of messages in my young life, as I was growing up and trying to figure things out, really led me to be a long-term Christian. Now, that's not to say that a long-term good guy or a long-term person in actual total control of how I acted or reacted or what I did. None of that's true. I've just been a follower of Jesus, right? And the message that I have for today in this first part is that I chased the promise of Christianity that I could be forgiven, and the promise of Christianity that when I was forgiven, that I would feel better, that I would have peace, that I would have joy. I chased that all of my life. I made the decision to become a minister, to go to seminary, and to do those kind of things. All of it in pursuit of the promise that I heard in those early years as a Christian. Here is the thing. The promise of Christianity was true for me throughout those years, but it was disconcertingly true only for short time periods. So my experience over and over again was that I would go to church, take communion, or go to church and just pray, and I would confess my sins, and I'd ask for forgiveness, and I'd feel the Spirit of God, or the presence of God, and I would feel better. I would leave church refreshed and with my hope restored, and I would have peace. As a little kid, that would last until I walked in the door coming home from church, and mom oftentimes, or brothers or sister, would summarily end that peace. As a growing man, and even as a pastor, the same pattern continued. I knew the peace that was promised through confession and through belief that God had the power to cleanse me from my sins, but it didn't last very long. The ways of the world and the thought patterns of the world, and the sense that I had that I was absolutely kind of a worthless piece of junk, that so pervaded my life that I just couldn't figure out a way to hang on to the peace or to the joy for a very long time period at all. And so believing the formulas of Christianity that I was raised with in first the Southern Baptist tradition and then in the Methodist tradition brought me great relief, and in many ways put me on a path that saved me from some of the other happy ideas I had along the way that were very destructive. So Christianity has done a ton for me, but it's still well into my late 30s had not resulted in a sense of lasting peace or joy. Life was always a struggle. And it was at that time that I began to confront that. And I realized that the things that I had heard as a child, the things that I had been taught in seminary, and the very things that I preached week after week after week were the formulas, the correct theology that goes with Christianity. And the promises that I made were promises that I believed or that I hoped would come true in people's lives and in mine. But I began to wrestle at that time with the fact that they hadn't come true, at least again, not long term, that there wasn't a sense of belonging or a sense of peace or a sense of purpose that really pervaded my life and could overcome the many obstacles to those things. And I guess I stood at a crossroads at that point. I've talked to lots of people in my life who, when they come to the same kind of point, they say, well, Christianity must be wrong, right? I did and believed everything I was supposed to, and it didn't work. So they go run off to be a Buddhist or to explore other faith traditions, or they throw the baby out with the bathwater and say no faith tradition is right, and they begin to pursue other type of stuff. It never occurred to me to do that. It wouldn't have made any sense to blame the system that had been my saving grace all of my life, to suddenly say, well, it hasn't been as dramatic as I want it to be, so therefore it must be wrong. That type of thinking is, I don't know that it's right or wrong. It's just foreign to me. My thought at the time of the beginning of the crisis of my faith, because I knew the faith was not producing in me what it had promised, was more the beginning of questioning what might lie beyond the core themes and formulas that I had learned and that I had taught. Was there a deeper path of Christianity that I had been blind to or that I had ignored? And that's what we'll be talking about over the next several weeks as we explore this topic. So as you listen to this thing, I hope that some of it will resonate with you. You may be sitting out there and saying, oh, Pastor Steve, I have long-term peace and joy. I could have told you the way. Well, maybe, but I might not have been ready to listen. And you might have found a way that's different than mine. I don't know. Or it could also be, of course, that you're sitting out there and thinking, yeah, I know what you're saying, right? Me too. I have not experienced all the fruits of the Spirit that have been promised to me. So there should be some interest in that. Think about those things in the coming week as you get ready to listen to next week's Happy Thoughts on the same subject. I do hope that you're having a good day, that wherever you are, your heart is good, and that if you're not having a good day, that you know that the way to change that is to walk with Christ and to love other folks. So God bless you, and we'll pick it up again next week, starting in my late 30s on the journey. Thanks for being with me.